Hi, my name is Camila Dejesus, and you are watching Conversando. Today, we are wildly excited to have the talented founder and CEO of the Cathedral, a 1930s church turned into an event space, art space, office space, everything. So business owner, artist, amazing person, nica Ceniceros. How are you doing? How was the drive? How's everything?
I'm doing great. I'm a tiny bit sleep deprived these days because we just adopted a puppy. But other than that, just things are busy with Hispanic Heritage Month. Lots of events coming up, and really enjoyed our time in Santa Fe.
So what is the puppy like? What is the important questions? Is this the Pomeranian or?
So yes, I do have a Pomeranian poodle, and her name is Frida. She's 6 years old though. She's kind of my gallery dog. Everybody at the Cathedral knows her and loves her. She's got such a funky and unique personality. But we were fostering 3 puppies. And of course, we fell in love with the runt of the family and kind of had to bring him back to health and life. Wow. And after that, we were like, okay, I think you belong in our home. And now we've had him for almost 4 months, and he's the cutest little baby. Such a handsome boy. Very different personality from Frida.
I'm sure.
But yeah.
Do they get along well?
They at times I would say I wouldn't say they fully get along. Frida was definitely an only child, personality used to getting all of the attention, but they're coming long ways. Vinny is even though he's like really big, he's so gentle with her and like loves his sister, and it's just so cute to see them interact with each other.
Stop. That I had the same experience with my cats where like I fostered one and then I was like, you have it. You're mine. You're not going anywhere else.
I know. I don't know. Thank goodness for my husband, because whenever I signed up to foster the 3 puppies, I didn't really ask. I was just the next day. I was like,
gosh.
Hey, so I did this. And he's like, why didn't you talk to me about these things? And of course, he ended up falling in love with one of the puppies. So I'm glad he did, because I don't think I could have asked for another favor.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so wild. So before we get into the Cathedral, I want to learn more about you. You grew up in Monterrey, Mexico, and moved to the U.S. when you were just 15. Mm-hmm. What was that change like for you?
It was pretty wild. Looking back, at the time I was obviously a teenager, and I grew up in Monterrey going to an all-girls Catholic school. So
I went to a Catholic school growing up too. I feel you.
I mean, it was an entirely change of not necessarily just pace, but my world was just completely changed, and I was so comfortable back at home in Monterrey with my friends that I've had since kindergarten. You have your typical routine in the city that you're born in, and obviously living with my parents. So when we moved to Austin, we moved with my oldest sister, so my parents stayed back in Mexico. So that was a big adjustment to begin with. And second, we went to a public high school, co-ed high school, so I wasn't really used.
So it's like every change all at once.
Yeah. It's like the language, the culture, going to school with boys.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit overwhelming, I would say.
Were you learning English while being in school?
So I went to a bilingual school in Monterrey, but by no means was I fluent. So the language barrier was difficult, and obviously challenging for me to just start speaking fluently. And obviously in high school, people are speaking with their slang, so I wasn't used to that. Like I was used to very proper English, so I was like, whoa, slow down for me. But yeah, it was a big adjustment, and having to make friends kind of in the middle of the semester. I didn't really come in at the beginning of the year, so it was all kind of challenging.
Do you remember what slang was popular at that time?
Oh my gosh.
You were like, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah. Well, everybody was just speaking so quickly for me. Yeah. So, and then, there's the kind of like the Texas accent. So everything kind of, the little yodel, is that what you call it? what do you call the Texas?
The drawl,
the
Southern
draws.
drawl.
Yeah. So I just felt like every word was attached to the other, and not. I wasn't getting like individual specific words like I was used to. So everything just sounded like a song to me, and I was like, I cannot understand what anyone's saying. Thankfully, the teachers were better at communicating than the students, but it was an interesting time. Definitely. It was fun, but I would say definitely challenging.
I can only imagine. It's one of those things, like, you look back at your childhood and you're like, I don't know how I did that, but I'm here somehow.
Yeah.
So,
I know. I also remember I love fashion. I love clothes. So going to a Catholic.
Obviously, can we take a moment of just, if you're listening to this, her outfit is amazing. We have boots, we have shorts. It's very Texas now.
It is very Texas. I was like,
you acclimated.
I was very excited to put together my outfits for school. So one thing I remember vividly is people looking at me and being like, "Are you from Mexico?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why do you dress like that?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Why do I dress like that?" So people were wearing big T-shirts and almost like PJ shorts to school, which I understand now to a certain point, but I was like, why are people dressing this way? Growing up in Mexico is always like everyone's super dressed up. Even when you go to the grocery store, my mom's like, put on your lipstick. And so I very much took that. It was very culturally ingrained in me, and it still is, I would say, but that was one of the things that I think, I was one of the only Latino people in the high school, and then me, I was dressed I would stand out so much, and people are like, why? We've never met anyone from Mexico that looks like this.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. Growing up in Texas as a Latina, but it's so interesting that they were talking about your culture too. Like they were like, "Oh, you're from Mexico, that's why." When it's like, what if you just like to dress nice?
Yeah, I was like, I just really like to,
What if you don't want to wear a baggy T-shirt?
Exactly, yeah. And eventually, you just learn to be more confident in who you are, and I think that's the biggest thing that I took from that big change is just really making sure that I was being my genuine self and not changing who I was to please other people. So.
I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. So when did your love of, as you said, you love fashion. So when did that love turn into physical art, creating art?
So I actually loved fashion and art since I was little. And the school that I was going to, we had an hour of art class every day, which I don't know if that's the same in the U.S. or not. But my school was very art forward, and I was always just good at art, but I also loved it. And I just remember that as a little child that I was always drawing and painting. My brother's an architect, and he's almost 10 years older than me, so we would just sit for hours and draw together. Oh, wow. So I have some family members that were artists, so art's always kind of been a part of me, and I knew that whatever I did in life, art was going to be part of it. I really studied fashion in school because I wanted to study something that I could actually apply to a real job. Not to say being an artist is not a real job, but that's a whole other conversation in terms of course. Having moved here from Mexico, I wanted to make sure that I, had a successful career. And as an artist, you're always told it's incredibly difficult to be a successful artist. So
the starving
I just naturally knew that I wasn't ever going to study studio art to be an artist. That was just going to be, art was going to be a part of my life just as a hobby or as whatever. Yeah. But that's kind of why I ended up doing fashion because, I could do design, I could study graphic design and minor in marketing. So that's kind of.
So how did all of that lead you to the Cathedral? What was the trajectory there?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. When I moved back to Austin from school, I went to school in Dallas, and I started painting in the medium that I paint now when I was in college in Dallas. And I was, a broke college student, and I wanted to decorate my apartment to perfection because I love interior design too.
Yes, oh my gosh.
So I was like, well, I can't afford art, so I'm just going to make my own. And I went to Home Depot to purchase some plywood because I wanted to paint on plywood and not on canvas because I always like doing things a little differently. And I took that piece of plywood home, and when I set it on top of the kitchen counter, I saw this kind of like women figures, and I just said, cool, I'm gonna play around with this. And that's how the medium that I work in now was born. I paint on wood panels, and I follow the natural grain of the wood to bring out all this like flowers and women. It's very colorful, very like folkloric, very, you know, tied to my culture, and learned a lot by working with the wood and using the imperfections of the wood, and every piece has its individual challenges. So kind of reminded me a lot of my trajectory in like coming to the US and really wanting to not hide my imperfections and what made me unique, because that's what eventually makes everyone beautiful. And the wood kind of taught me that naturally, and therefore I kind of like embraced that and started painting on wood panels. And when I moved back to Austin, I wanted to keep that part of me alive, so I decided to rent a studio space in East Austin. So that's kind of how I got integrated with the local art scene, by meeting other artists that were a part of that gallery, you know, sharing studio space with them. And I was kind of forced into doing the East Austin Studio Tour, if you've heard of it.
No,
it's
I
the largest.
haven't.
It's called East, and it stands for the East Austin Studio Tour, and is the largest self-guided tour in Austin, and it's been going on for years and years and years. Canopy is actually a huge part of that tour. Thousands of people.
What does that mean? Like, what does it look like?
So all of the, what it means is that anyone can come and tour an artist studio, get to meet the artist, and purchase their work directly from their studio.
Oh, wow.
So the tour has grown year after year in Austin, and now there's the West Austin Studio Tour, and then East Austin Studio Tour is still in November. But that's, you know, really became one of the biggest money makers for local artists. So that's kind of how I got introduced to doing art shows within the studio that I was really just renting to keep that hobby alive. I was around a bunch of other artists that were like professional full-time artists, and I was like, no, like, don't look at my art. I'm not painting to make a living out of this. But yeah, to your point, the cathedral eventually became a thing after I started the ATX Gals Collective. So I started an all-women artist collective after I realized that from doing a bunch of art shows, group shows in Austin, that I was often not being given the same opportunities as other, you know, more professional artists. And I say that in quotations. It's really hard to get into the gallery world if you don't have, you know, the credentials of, you know, going to art school or even having a PhD in art. And I didn't have that. And women are highly underrepresented in the art world.
Really?
Yes. Artists that actually get picked up by galleries, and even like looking at our history and looking at how much revenue a male artist makes versus a female artist, still to the day we're highly underrepresented and underpaid. So yeah, one year I just kind of decided I wanted to put together my own art show, and I wanted it to showcase all young women artists, and then we gave 100% of the proceeds to, at the time, Girls Empowerment Network.
Oh, wow.
It was the year of the election after Trump had gotten elected.
Okay.
And I felt a little,
you
know, I wanted to do something and
to uplift
that could,
females,
to uplift
young
women. And that's kind of how the collective started. We kind of blew up after that first event. I come from a marketing PR background, so I was able to promote the show easily. And long story short, we did a series of pop-ups around Austin, and our goal was to like create a more welcoming environment in our gallery spaces, but also make them more fun and unique, where you could come in and really get to know the artist and you know, connect with their work. And after 2 years of pop-up shows, we grew enough to the point to where I was like, okay, I think we can get a physical space and grow the number of artists that we work with and expand their opportunities if we do more art shows. So that's kind of how the general idea of opening a gallery space came about, but it wasn't ever anything that I had dreamt of from,
Right.
That's
so interesting.
An earlier age that I was like, yes, I want to be a gallery owner. I kind of just one thing led to the other, and I realized how much I really loved creating experiences for people. I love hosting parties, but I love creating spaces where people feel like they can get inspired and make true connection with art and the artists. So we really started building a really cool community through art, and I wanted the space, our physical space, to reflect our brand, to really reflect who we were, and had no idea that I was going to end up in a church, but
that's what I'm like. Okay, so you wanted to open a gallery. Originally, when you said you gave 100% of the proceeds, I was like, why? But now I understand, and that's so powerful.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. But okay, so what drew you to the church, the literal physical church?
So I was working with a friend at the time that is in commercial real estate, and he was helping me find a space. And because I had hosted so many large art pop-ups around Austin, I kind of knew the process of, renting a venue and working with licensed versus unlicensed venue. And I also understood their pricing model and the need for a space to just have people to gather for whatever reason, right? So also understanding how difficult it is to really have a successful gallery or even art organization. I come from, again, marketing sales background, so I really wanted to create something that was different and with a business model that, could help us monetize the space to use it as a resource for artists. So it's like, if I find a space that we make, if we make it beautiful enough, other people would want to be in it, even outside of our art shows. If we find a space that has a space for studios, then we can rent those studios to artists. We can have the main event space become a co-working space during the day, so that we can, again, monetize the space at different times of the day.
That's brilliant.
I knew that, WeWork was kind of new at the time, and I was like, yeah. So, understanding the need for space as a working space for people, and also knowing that there wasn't really anything in the market that was specific for creatives. One or not, as a creative myself and knowing other artists, you are a business owner. You have to promote your own art. Yeah. You have to promote yourself, and that requires time in the office. So, it's not very, I would say, inspiring to go work from WeWork if you're an artist or a creative person. Right. So yeah, that's kind of where the idea came about, and started building a business plan around it. And when my requirements were like, I need to be on the east side, parking will be great. And my friend was like, Monica, with your budget, like, I don't know that I can find you what you're looking for. So
in Austin,
So one day he's like, okay, I'm going to take you somewhere, but I want you to keep your mind open. And I was like, okay. He didn't tell me what it was, so we just pull up to an old, literally like falling down church. And I was like, is this a church? And he's like, yes, but hear me out. So they were just breaking ground on the renovation of the space when I first toured what is now the Cathedral. And really...
What year was that?
That was 2017. No, 2019. Because we moved in at the end of October of 2019, so that was summer of 2019. So everything happened pretty quickly.
Wow, yeah.
And then I kind of just, initially I was worried, just because, again, growing up in Mexico and growing up Catholic and going to church, I'm like, I don't know that I want to step. I know. I'm like, how's my mom going to feel if I throw parties in here and we're drinking tequila and whatever?
That Catholic school guilt, it gets you.
I know, for sure. But then I really saw the potential. There's just really something there's a specific energy in the space. And I learned that the congregation that was occupying the space before sold the building because they outgrew the space. So they were still alive and thriving.
Okay,
and
but no one died in the church.
Yeah, exactly. So that was important to me. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was like the Mexican part of me that I was like, I need to like come in here and like
no, I mean,
my hierbas and do my
that's the
thing.
first thing I would think of is why are people not here? So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I saw it when it was like literally like super dark in this space because it had the what do you call the windows that are
Or like the stained glass?
yeah, stained glass windows. And so it was really dark when I went in there, but kind of was able to see what the architect and the landlord were planning to do with the space. And
And
really,
you didn't have to pay for that. That was already happening?
that was correct. So that was part
thank
of
God.
their,
Okay.
you know, they were getting the space ready to lease it to somebody that was interested
okay.
in, you know, in occupying it, at least the sanctuary portion. And they were working on that. But there were still a lot of things that were needed, like last, you know,
I'm sure, yeah.
decoration details and design aspects. So we were lucky enough to walk into the space then because they allowed us to really make it our own and work with the architect in terms of like, you know, which do you like this light fixtures or not? And then being able to like furnish the space entirely on our own to make it again really true to what we wanted to do in the space.
All of that is so wildly impressive. I'm sure you've like felt the stress of, I cannot imagine making a business, but then also having a physical space to like make it look pretty and for different events to be on top of all of it. It just seems like very exciting and also very like wildly stressful. How did you get through that time?
I right now I don't know how I got through that time. Like, you know, I had a full-time job
Oh my
for
God.
a long time, you know, before I could actually exit and focus on this entirely, like 100%. But I was just working at night, putting like presentations together with different, you know, furniture to kind of visualize what the space would look like. And I'm not an interior designer, and that's like very specific, you know, niche, I would say. But when I was, again, pricing out different interior designers, I was like, I can't afford that. So I just decided to do it all myself. And
that's kind of fun though, in a way.
It was so fun. I thought of it as, I was like, I just need to simplify this. I studied fashion. I know how to put different patterns, different colors together. And I know, you know, the balance, and from my design background, like balancing a flyer is like balancing a room, you know? So I just kind of used my knowledge to the best to, you know, put the space together. And it was really, really fun and really stressful at the time. But the good thing I would say is like I had a harsh deadline because like we're opening on this date. So it made me do some impulse buys, because I feel like if I would have sat with it for a long time, I would have just changed my mind, or I would have just continued to play with it until it was perfect. But nothing's ever perfect, really.
Right. You're
So,
always
like,
changing it.
Yeah.
What was the color scheme initially?
I wanted it to be very colorful, but welcoming. Like when I think of going to Mexico, I always think about how different restaurants and spaces make you feel. I'm very in tune with like what colors bring up specific feelings, and I really wanted the space to feel welcoming without it being like a, you know, colorful throw up. You know, I am a very colorful person in the way I dress and with my art, so I wanted it to be a reflection of me and our brand, and mostly wanted people to feel welcome in this space. So it's like a lot of magenta in this space, black and white.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
That's so cool. It makes, I mean, like I can like picture your art on the wood and all of it. It's like, it sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Not to be negative mildly.
No,
but
no, go for it. Go for it.
What challenges did you face building a space like the Cathedral, especially as a Latina entrepreneur in the arts world?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging enough just, you know, doubting yourself that you can do it because there's no one in the space like you, and you start questioning a lot of things. I thankfully knew some entrepreneur friends that gave me some good advice and kind of encouraged me, but then I also heard from some people like that I was biting more than I can chew, and it was probably the few negative people that gave me more encouragement to be successful than the ones that were in the, I mean, I appreciated obviously all the positive feedback, but sometimes, you know, it's as the mindset of like, I'm going to figure out a way to make this work. And, you know, you get into the financial challenges of starting a business. So I was very, very lucky to, I had a W-2 job for many years where I made good enough income, and I had a good amount saved that I could put into the business. My plan was always to keep my job until I felt like I could finally, you know, focus 100% in the business, in my new business. And I also had a friend from Mexico that approached me and asked me how I was planning on funding all of this. She herself is also a business owner. And when she first moved to the U.S. and wanted to start this business, she has a business in construction. So not very common for a woman and an immigrant woman to start a business.
That's amazing.
Business. I know, she's such a badass. And she told me how she actually sought funding from different banks, and she was denied left and right because, you know, it's just like being a woman and being in like concrete construction business. Like, how are you going to make this work, right? Like, this is not a business for women. And she mentioned how one of her girlfriends that had a business did the same thing that she did to me. She approached her and was like, I will give you the money because I experienced the same issues that you're experiencing right now. So she literally was like, if you need funding, I'm not coming in as an investor. I just want to help you. And that's literally the only funding that I've gotten so far outside of being self-funded.
That's really beautiful. That's really empowering.
Yeah.
It's like dual. At the same time, it's kind of like unfortunate that obviously we're all, like, women are faced with such sexism and racism and all of it. But also that's really, really beautiful that she could come in there and like help you in that way. Like that's incredible.
Paying it forward sort of situation. And it was, I mean, it's hard not to like cry when I tell that story because it's like
that's so moving.
It was so like impactful to me, and I'm so forever thankful. Of course, she's a close friend of mine, and we opened in October of 2019, so like literally months after that, COVID happened, and had we not had that funding in place, I don't know that we would even be around. I had my full-time job, and thank God, like, my partner, now husband, but my partner at the time was helping me with like bills at home, and my salary was going entirely to just keeping the cathedral afloat during that time. Gosh. It was like a really scary, stressful time.
I'm sure. Can you share a moment when you felt like deeply proud of what the cathedral had achieved? Like one core moment, opening day or something, where you were just like, wow, like I did this.
Yeah, I would say I have that moment often, because it still feels very surreal, even now. Like, it's like, you know, we are busy and we go like on like the day-to-day events. We do so much in this space: private events, weddings, corporate, or on art shows. So it's a kind of like a big, busy operation with a small team. But I would say opening day is one that I will always remember. And I think we do an open house every month. So I think after each open house, there's at least somebody that comes up to me and they're like, thank you so much for building this space. Like, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I just like get to kind of like sit back and look at all the people that come through this space to look at art and you know, meet the artists and all of that. And I think it's a great reminder that it's much needed sometimes, because there's like so much stress sometimes, but it's nice to have that like monthly event at least to see what, like, okay, this is the reason why we built this space. So it's always like a nice yeah, a nice reminder of like a little pat in the back for like
I love
myself
that.
and my team of like, good job, guys. Like, this is what we're doing.
I think that's so incredible.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite event you guys have thrown?
Oh my gosh, we've had so many incredible events, but I would say our anniversary party is particularly special just because we get to see a lot of our like longtime supporters that come in, and we do a Dia de Muertos theme. So it's like really beautiful in the space. We like
Right, because you launched around October. Okay.
Yeah, so we deck it out with like flowers, and every year we just do it bigger and better. And then that's when I do my solo art show as well. So I get to really share, I guess, like the reason why everything started, because I sometimes like neglect my art or prioritize other things in the business before my art. But I think it's a nice time of year for me to like really go heads down and thank the people that have been there from the beginning, new people, and being able to share my art with everyone, and literally my visual art, but also like the cathedral is my baby and a piece of art as well. So it's like nice to be able to like celebrate that together with our community.
That is beautiful. I have a bit of a silly question. If you were to have a wedding hosted there, what would be one vendor you'd have, and what would the color scheme be?
What would be
a vendor
that
the vendor,
you have, okay,
and a color scheme?
Okay, I like that question. I'm a big music person, so maybe a Stephanie Vergara for like a Selena themed. She was actually at my I hired her for my birthday this year, but she's so fun. So I think having a little bit of like Selena involved in my wedding would be fun.
That's kind of
she's
everything.
Like the perfect, obviously person for that. And my color theme would be, I mean, the space is like white, so I love like magentas and golds and reds like together, so like just like very like a bougainvillea style, like very
vibrant,
but like natural looking.
That's so cool.
Which is kind of what we did for our wedding actually, but I'm just
well, there you go.
That, so yeah, I would have a Stephanie Vergara to play some Selena for everybody, so that we could dance at the end of the night, and I would go with like very vibrant, like magentas, and
that's everything.
Yeah,
that's so fun. It is nice that the space is so neutral, so you can like, especially having like my mom got married last year, so we toured many places in Austin, and many of them are very Texas.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stone. It's a lot of things.
Sterile. You're like, oh, okay, the venue is 5,000, and spend another 10,000 on flowers, so you can make it,
so you can make it like not, So I love that venue. It is so beyond gorgeous.
Thank you.
If people were interested in having an event there, how could they find out more about the cathedral or get into it?
Yeah, so the best way to inquire about having an event there is just by going to our website, thecathedralatx.com. We have a tab specifically for private events, and then it takes you into like a little questionnaire about, the type of event that you're looking for. We have different, obviously, pricing depending on the day, type of event, all of that. But the cool thing about our space is that it's fully furnished. Obviously, there's art and greenery in this space, lighting, like really cool lighting at night. So it's kind of all there. So we make it really easy for people to be able to be like kind of like a one-stop shop for.
That's amazing. Yeah. What would the general pricing be around like a studio or something like that?
So for private offices, we have semi-private studios starting at $650 a month, and that's kind of like a big cubicle. That's
actually
really
great
good
pricing.
Yeah,
I thought it would be like way more expensive. Okay, great.
And then fully private studios are pretty large for private studios, and they all have natural light. Is great. So those start at $1,850 a month. Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
Pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
And private events starting at like $350 an hour, and then they go up from there again depending on what day, time, all of that.
No, that's all amazing. Thank you so much. I think those are all the questions I have for you.
Okay, nice.
And this was...
You didn't make it too hard. That's good.
No, that's what I'm saying. I feel like people get nervous, and I'm like, we're not gonna
I was like, do I need to prep
for
anything? I don't know. Sometimes when we do interviews, they'll throw me like a really hard question, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have prepared for this. I don't know what to say right on the spot.
What were your taxes? No.
Yeah, I know.
No, but thank you so
gosh.
much for
Thank
being here.
you.
It's been an absolute delight,
No,
like an absolute
thank you.
pleasure. And if you have any last words, anything you want to shout out, where can people find you?
Thank you. If you want to follow my art, my Instagram is Moni, short for Monica, .Ceniceros. That's Ceniceros. I know the common last name is Cisneros, not Ceniceros. But yeah, otherwise, the Cathedral ATX, it's Instagram, and then our collective is ATX Gals, which is our now Austin's largest women artist collective. Wow, I can speak now at the end, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you want to follow our journey and art shows that we do in the space.
And thank you so much for being here again. Like, truly, it's such an amazing space, and you have such an incredible story.
Thank
It's
you.
exactly what Latanitas wants to be highlighting.
It's such an honor and pleasure, and love what you guys do as an organization, and excited to see what else we can do together.